Good evening. Welcome to Journey to Happiness. At any point throughout this story, should you feel drowsy or sleepy, please do not resist the urge. You can drift to sleep at any time you would like. You can even listen to the empty spaces between my words, as this storytelling is meant to induce sleep, and I'll try my best to lure you in your best night's sleep. Thebigcat by Louise Erdrich. The women in my wife's families all snored, and when we visited for the holidays every winter, I got no sleep. Elida's 3 sisters and their bomb-proof husbands loved to go gather at her parents' house in Golden Valley, an inner-ring suburb of Minneapolis. The house was less than 20 years old, but the sly tricks of the contractor were evident in every sagging sill, skew jab, cracked plaster wall, tilted handrail, and most significantly, in the general lack of insulation that caused the outer walls to ice up and the inside to resound. Every night, the sounds were different. Helplessly cognizant, I formed mental scenarios while drifting in and out of sleep. One memorable night, I tossed and turned in the mental working shop. From the far end of the second-floor hallway came the powerful rip of my mother-in-law's rough-cut saw. From below, on the living room's fold-out couches, the intermittent thrum and the welder's torches, a wild hissing was as the sisters' noses sparked and soldered invisible objects. Beside me, Elida's finishing touch, the high-pitched burr of a polisher perfecting a metal surface. Elida was slight, and she's dressed in precise, quiet colors. She sat with her hands folded, wore clear nail polish, and almost undetectable makeup. You would never have imagined that such a starched little person could produce such sounds. Ambient earplugs, 2 pillows over my head, nothing could shut the noise out. I lay awake stewing, even though I knew I should feel sorry for them. The sisters and their mother had visited sleep clinics, endured surgery, blown their CPAPs off their faces, tried every nose strips and homeopathic remedy that existed. It wasn't that they liked to snore, but that they were incurable. I think they took comfort in solidarity. Elida admitted that she loved sleeping in that noisy house, and sometimes they snore in unison, which were terrifying. One sub-zero vacation morning, my daughter Valerie ran her finger across the ice fur downstairs living room wall, asked, "What is this, Daddy?" Snores, I say. Blue with tiredness. All the snore from last night have stuck to the walls. Later, after her mother and I divorced, Valerie listlessly recalled that moment as the first time she realized how alive with sound that night was, and that all the noise emanated from the women in the family. Later still, she asked her mother at what age she began to snore, and asked me if that was the reason we split up. Valerie was worried for her own future. I assured her that snoring had had nothing to do with the divorce, which was incapable but also unavoidably painful. I laughed and hugged Valerie. I even told her that I had adored her mother's snores. I had never adored them, but I had adored Elida, almost to the point of madness, from the first time we met. We found each other in Hollywood, as Minnesotan expatriates always do, common sense driving them together. Though to leave the land of 10,000 lakes for a thirsty city built on desert may speak to some interior flaw. For Elida, it was the compulsive blur of film editing. In my case, the shame of acting. Although I auditioned endlessly and always had work, my parts generally lasted between 6 and 12 seconds. I rarely had a line, but I had Elida. Her intense green stare, her Nordic pallor, and even after years of sunlight, her slender, gliding walk, and the dark scrub of her severe haircut, she was mine. Once Valerie turned 12, I was cast in a supporting role in a movie that got a lot of attention. It could have been my fabled break, but Elida certainly panicked over how unhappy Valerie was in high school and decided that the schools in Minneapolis were more nurturing. We moved back. I had to accept the fact that my film career was over. I had worked steadily and spoken a line or two, given many meaningful cleanse, strip villains, sucker punch heroes, spill coffees on a dance around movie stars. In revolving doors, I had appeared in dozens of films, TV episodes, commercials. But Elitas hadn't been doing well, and both of us got better, more reliable jobs back home. Elita loved the minuscule, the hundreds of tiny decisions that together produce a great flow of scenes. She applies to this love of detail to her new vocation, planning corporate events. I also love the small, when it's consisted of learning to say lines a dozen different ways with different tonal qualities, inflection, and gestures. In my new jobs, as a fundraiser for a vibrant local theater company, I perfected the gestures and tones that I hope would coax donation to my organization. For my birthday that year, perhaps, to console me for the life I've given up, Alita somehow managed to clip and slide together a half-hour movie of my bit parts, which she set to eerily repetitive music. Shortly after she gave me that gift, which she titled Man of a Thousand Glimpses, we parted. I moved out of our downtown condominium. For the first couple of months after leaving Alita, I bottled out of work at exactly 4 p.m. I drove to my tiny apartment impatiently, hungrily, addicted not to the new relationship, but to sleep itself. Deep rest was a drug. Waking from relaxed oblivion, I vibrated with an almost tear-inducing pleasure. Why shoot up, I wonder, when just by depriving the body of uninterrupted sleep for 20 years, you can have ecstasy with no side effects, except, it might be said, for Lorraine. It took no time at all before I was sleeping the entire night beside a woman whom I feared I had married too quickly because she slept like a drunk kitten. From the beginning, I had to consciously keep myself from referring to Lorraine in casual conversation as my current wife, though it was taken as a joke. I knew better. It was a slip. Lorraine Scotts was the daughter of the owner of an immensely successful Midwestern sporting goods chain, with the outlets in the excess of the excerpts throughout the tri-state area. She was also a lover of the theater's arts. At the annual gala dinner for my theater company, which Alita organized pro bono for the year we parted, Lorraine spoke between the salad and the entree. Her flattering words of thanks to our supporters would screen a play for still greater largesse impressed me with their genuine awkward grace. Lorraine revealed in that sort of gala where people bid on donated items, the use of timeshare in warm countries, fur coats, ski packages, signed books, hand-printed scarves, scarf drapes of chairs, and we took suburb vacations. Lorene's was blonde, social, generous, and loved to barbecue. Alida was dark, wayward, introverted, frugal, and usually a vegetarian. Lorene could drink a whole bottle of cold Pinot Noir between 5 and 6 p.m. Alida might sip one murderous, snore-inducing glass of Côte de Rhum between 11 and midnight. After the divorce, Alida and I met once a month to discuss Valerie. We had agreed to do this early on, even when it hurt to see each other. Every time, after we had wincingly established where Valerie's college tuition would come from, or whether she needed a new therapist. After Alida has confided the latest news of Valerie's boyfriend, who we both hoped would turn out to be simply an experience, we would conclude the hour with a cheerful goodbye, perhaps saying, "That wasn't so bad," or even, "Good to see you." We laughed in relief. We hugged, patted each other on the back, sometimes drank a cup of tea before the drive home. We never kissed, not even on the cheek. Our divorce has been agreeable and final. Our post-divorce meetings were lingering, tedious, and self-congratulatory. Once Lorene and I were married, however, the meetings with Alida became more difficult. The boyfriend had turned into a problem, perhaps an addiction. We also began, without any warning, to fight. It would start with some obscure things and progress to even more obscure things. By the end of our meetings, Alida and I were worn out. Then, after one particular difficult section, still upset that we were saying goodbye, Alida, instead of hugging me, stuck out her hand. I took her hand and held on to it until she met my eyes. Her glare pulled me into her, and I shocked us both by kissing her studious, pale lips. We jumped apart, as though scorched, and turned away. We didn't speak of it. Our next meeting was set up by email, and I found myself walking eagerly toward Nick's, a restaurant off Loring Park, which was quiet by day with leather boots and gauzy curtains that let in glowing white raft of winter light. Alida was sitting at the third booth's end and raised her hand as I entered, then put a tissue to her eyes. She had been crying, a rare event. It usually meant frighteningly that she had had some breakthrough realization about me that she's repressed for years. Wearily, I asked her what was wrong. She told me that Valerie had started snoring. Her boyfriend has left her, thank goodness. But now, Valerie was refusing to believe that her mother's snoring hadn't precipitated a divorce. Of course it didn't. Maybe not. We had another issues. Who doesn't? 20 good years, one bad year, 1,000 little issues came home to roost. I thought, because of these good years we might still get back together, Alida said. Until Lorene, she doesn't snore, right? I admitted as much. Ah, Alida turned to look out the window, with her dark, glinting hair swung sorrowfully alongside her cheek. The first time we spent a night together. St. George Street? I warn you, I snore. I'd already been to the specialist and had surgery, which only make it worse. It's almost a relief to sleep alone now. At least, I'm not blasting a man out of bed. I never minded. I thought of the couch in Los Feliz that had wrecked my back, the walk-in closet with a floor pallet in our Minneapolis condo. I adjourned to those lonely sleeping venues on most nights. I did mind, but her fixed gaze shook my heart. Last month you kissed me. I did. We grew perplexed, ate in silence, each secretly examining the other's faces from time to time. I was very conscious of the drama of the situation. Any former actor would have been. You try non-expressions, she said, laughing. It was true. Various expressions crossed my face, but none felt right. The elements wouldn't meld. My eyes would express affections while my mouth was tense. Surprise would lift an eyebrows while my upper lips worked cynically. Embarrassment smote me. At least that was real. I put my face in my hands and tried to breathe, but my hands covering my mouth make me hyperventilated. When I looked up, Alida was signing the credit card slip. She folded her napkin. Don't get up, she said. From now on, let's do a phone call on email. I really hated email, I say. For personal stuff, please sit down. We can solve this. She sat down. Irrationally elected, I order a bottle of wine. This is a bad idea, Alida said. Why? We can talk. How are the Ripsaw and the Welders? Alida knew my nicknames for her mothers and sisters. Huh. She cleaned her glass. What was I again? The polisher. I don't really mind that, she said. It's in my line of work. Really? I miss you. Maybe we should have an affair where we see each other only by day and never sleep together, at night. She was speaking whimsically, but we proceeded to do exactly that. We were extremely happy for 10 months. To be sure, I felt bad about lying to Lorraine, but she noticed nothing. She made few demands, seems happy enough with my company, and continued to barbecue even in December. Meanwhile, Valerie had left for college, and Elita and I was meeting in our old condominium overlooking the poisoned brown water of Mississippi. Then one afternoon we were dressed, sipping tea, when Valerie dropped her suitcase inside the door. She was astonished to see us sitting there. She gaped silently for a moment, then clumped down the hall with her big snow boots. Elita gave me an oddly insolent look. She can live with a person, have an affair with a person, and still certainly see an unfamiliar flesh, like the belly of a fish in the shallow, there and gone. She had known exactly when our daughter would arrive home. Valerie screamed when she saw the untucked cover on our bed, the scattered pillows. She climbed back into the living room. How long had this been going on? We told her. She began to sob. All this time? How selfish. Mean. I could have had you both together. Instead, I've been trying to get used to you apart. I was facing the fact, and then she pressed her mittened hand to her temple as if to keep her head from flying apart. We all started crying, and for a while felt miserable. Then Alida snorted, and we burst into hysterical laughters. It was decided that I would come clean and leave Lorraine Scott's. Alida and I would remarry, although it was strange. The idea gave me an enormous sense of rightness. Things was falling into balance. My elation continued all the way back to Lorraine's and my house on Interlochen Boulevard in Hopkins, facing the golf course. A beautiful stone house with creamy painted walls, a wet bar in the basement, and a vast screening room for movie viewing parties. Sitting in my car and looking up at the flagstone wall, I thought of the pallet on the floor of the condominium's walk-in closet. I would regret leaving this lavish, comfortable house, bought by Lorraine Scott's money. I would regret leaving Lorraine's too. The silent comfort of her presence every night. Lorraine pitched a Majolica vase, then a framed photograph of us in Peru. She threw a few other breakable objects at the wall, and at last hefted a crystal unicorn she's had since the age of 10. You regret throwing that, I say. Please don't. I'm so sorry. Daddy was right. Tears rolled down her face, onto her collars, wetting her throat. I was stricken. I couldn't stop apologizing. Never before had I seen her truly upset or sad. Daddy was right, she said again. He said you was after the money. He didn't trust you. A former bit part actor. He begged me to come make you sign a prenup, but I said no. You're so wrong. He's the one. Because I had a little money, and because money hadn't figured into my first marriage, except for the problem of not having it. I was until that moment unaware that this had even been discussed. I put it out of my mind and didn't think about it until a month later. I'd moved out of Lorraine's house into my studio apartment. I continued to see Alita only during the day. I wasn't quite ready for the walk-in closet. Are you crazy? Alita said, putting down her teacup one afternoon after I told her the proposed term for my divorce. That family is worth more than 100 million. You could get a settlement. They'd never even miss it. I waved her off, but every time I thought about how handy, how fantastic it would be to have money, I wavered. With my nonprofit salary, I could barely afford to soundproof Valerie's old bedroom. I told myself that I keep my pride and sleep on the closet floor. I'd walk away without a cent, but I didn't, of course. We bought a condominium next door and removed 2 walls. This gave us an easy path into a larger room, where I set up a huge screen. Before it, we arranged several couches of immense size and comfort. I slept there in grateful quiet. I didn't take Lorraine for that much, comparatively speaking, and the Scott's family was relief. Still, they hated me enough to threaten for a while to get me fired. One night, Alita surprised me by playing the montage of clips she's made for my birthday years earlier. It was worse, somehow, seeing it on a giant screen bought with Lorraine's money, than I was my trivial works captured for the ages. I hadn't noticed when I first viewed the movie that Alita had made of those fleeting cameos and set pieces or sort of narrative, men of thousand glimpses. Started out with crowd scenes, me here, me there, the nice looking, the unobstructive bystanders reading a newspaper, glancing up at the sound of a gunshot, the man crossing a street, exiting a bakery, jumping into his car, uncoiling a hose to water his lawn. Next, better men appear, somewhat older, more heroic. I ran toward a river with a child in my arms. I was a soldier dragging his buddy to safety. I lowered a dog in a basket from a burning building, addressed the people through a bullhorn, rushed into waves, and dived toward a despairing arms. After that, I became a good father. Inflated bicycle tires, opening refrigerators, lay back smiling in my late night shopper's easy chair, had my waist measured, drove several carloads of screaming kids to sport matches. Small wonder I then got a pounding headache, clutched my jaw, my leg, my heart, wincing in agony. Next there came a turning point, which had been much applauded at the first viewing. I smoked a cigarette in a cheap motel. A beautiful woman silhouetted in the shower behind me. Afterward, ruined, I poured myself drink after drink, ordered a third martini, fell off a bar stool, crawled under a table, and licked a woman's ankle. I sank even lower, stuck a gun in the teller's face, took cash from the drawer of a fast food register, palmed an apple from a pile, stole a diamond bracelet, a newspaper. These crimes kept me tossing in bed. I stared at ceilings, my eyes luminous, hollow with glares, haunted by ghosts, by women, by hallucinations. Sleepless, I got clumsy. I was hit by a car, crushed by a falling gutter, devoured by a live volcano, axed and infected with bubonic plague. I was identified several times in liverish green, marked light, by stricken, dignified women. It was shocking the way I just kept on dying physically, then mentally. A wreck of a man. I leaped from a bridge, a window. I parked on a train track and drank deeply from a flask. I smiled at the swiftly approaching lights and laughed soundlessly. The end. A little left. I played the movie over and over. How dark was my narrative. Why had Alita killed me off, instead of letting me rescue dogs at the end? This downward trajectory gave me a moral chill. I decided that I had not only wasted my life, but had acted ignorably in taking money from Lorraine. Although Alita and I had made Valerie happy, I thought I was contented with Alita. I knew now, as I knew before, the nature of her true feelings for me. I destroyed the movie. It would be years before anyone noticed that my long ago birthday gift had disappeared, and I was once again dispersed into the confetti of B movies, failed TV sitcom, a clumsy commercials, No one would ever have the cruel patience to assemble my life glimpse by glimpse again. When the holidays came around, I insisted that we stay at the house in Golden Valley. Why not? I had already counted 1,000,000 holes and 1,000,000 ceiling tiles. The first night at Alita's parents' house, we all had a mirthful, loving dinner and did the dishes together. Alita's relatives had easily absorbed me back into the family, where my role, though peripheral, was also vital because I was Valerie's father. After we turned in and Alita fell asleep beside me, I lay on my back, waiting. It usually took her an hour or so to really get going, but her sisters and her mother had already begun. Valerie and a girl cousin had sneaked a bottle of wine into the sleeping bags and were now drifting off next door. The real snoring hit with abrupt ferocity. The orderly, mechanical regularity of the metal working shop had been abandoned. Now it was more like a pack of wolves snaring over a kill. I closed my eyes. On my mental screen, I saw lions driving the wolves, or hyenas, maybe into the veldt. On a hill overlooking the bloody feast, a baboon whooped. For many hours, I elaborated on the vivid images that accompany the soundtrack. A lioness worrying the leg off a casket, 2 others fending off a male, raking his ribs with teeth and claws, while the cubs mock fought nearby. At last, I dropped off. In the deepest part of the night, I woke, although Alita's snares had calmed to the loud, gurgling purr of a big cat digesting prey meat. I came to in a sick sweat, shaking. Perhaps my imagined scenario has triggered some terror from my evolutionary past. I had dreamed that I was the hunted animal thrown to earth, being eaten alive. The tearing of my flesh, the snap of my jaws wrestling at my bones, the blissful lapping as my throat opened, all this seemed absolutely real to me. It took some time for me to understand that Alita's body had not been satiated on mine, that she wasn't purring because she'd swallowed my heart.